What is going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. As you can see, this is my PC. Now, I'm actually in the middle of swapping out my PC case with a new PC case, which is the Hyte Y60. If you haven't seen that video, I'll drop a link down below for that. I'm not going to go too much into that case, but I thought that it would be nice to probably try a video like this. I tried it once before, and it just, it's a little hard to actually try to build a PC and then record at the same time, especially if you mess up and then having to continue the recording while it's doing that. So uh, what my goal is today is to actually swap cases. So I'm actually going to be pulling everything out from this PC case and putting it in to the Hyte Y60 because I just want to try different aesthetics, and I also want to try a different case. I've actually had, this is my third case that I'm actually trying. So the first case, when I first started building a PC, was the Fantex, and then I went from the Fantex to this, and I had this for about 3 years. This is the Corsair 4000D, and a lot has changed since I had this build for this PC. I started out with an AMD build, and I continued along the platform. My first CPU was the Ryzen 5 3600 with a NVIDIA 2070, I believe it was a super, might have been just a regular 2070. And then I went from the 2070 and the Ryzen 55 or 3600 to the Ryzen 7 7700X with a, I actually had a 2080 my brother loaned me because he bought a 3080. And then I was down in California last year, and this was at the height of still trying to get the AMD 7900 XTs, and they didn't really have any here in Alaska, which is where I live at. And when I was at Micro Center, because we don't have that up here in Alaska either, they actually had it cheaper there than it did at the Best Buy, which is a couple of miles down the road. And so I bought that and brought that home with me, popped it in, and now I swapped out my CPU. So now I am running a 70 or 30 or 9800 X3D is what I am currently using now for a CPU, and I don't plan on swapping out the CPU anytime soon because it's just an amazing build. So let me show you really quick what it looks like on the inside. Let me grab a light because it'll probably be a lot easier than also using the spotlight that I have right here because I need that for something else. So we'll just kind of go over really quick what I kind of have in here. So as you can see, this is my Be Quiet cooler. This is a 120 Be Quiet. This is a Dark Row Pro 5. Now this is a switch from the AIO Corsair that I had previously. So I really wasn't really interested in an AIO, especially with this type of a case, because it's just, there's not enough hand room to kind of get in here needing to swap something if I couldn't get into the PC or the PC can face or the PC fan case for the fan case for this. So that's why I swapped that out. This again is my 7900 XT. As you can see, it fits the case perfectly fine, but I have a GPU, I guess you can call this like a holder, a riser, GPU riser. Now obviously with the Ryzen or with the Hyte Y60, it's going to be mounted vertically, so I won't be able to see the XFS light up. It'll just be the bottom of the fans, which, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that. The cool thing is the amount of fans that I will have in that. So right now I'm currently running, and these are all going to be going into the Hyte Y60. These fans you see here, these are all going to be Fantex T30s. So the Hyte Y60 obviously comes with 3 fans. We'll have 2 bottom fans as well as 1 back. So on the top, I'll actually be able to run 3 of these fans here, and then I will have these 3 120 on the side, because obviously if you've ever seen the Hyte Y60s and even the Y70s, their fans are basically just kind of like a fishbowl style, so it's going to be in the corner. So all in all, I'm going to be running about 9 fans in total. That doesn't include the AIO or the air cooler that I'm going to have. They're just, and yes, I am running an air cooler on the 9800 X3D. I think it's perfectly fine. My temperatures are perfectly fine. I'll probably swap out the fans because right now I have them in an intake, and I want them to be exhaust, so I can have intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, and then exhaust out the back. Now I know everyone has their own way of how they want to do their airflow, and that's perfectly fine if that's how you want to do it. But if you want to say something different about it, that's perfectly fine again. But that's how I'm going to do it, because I had intake intake, exhaust, and then that's intake with the fans here. So to me, it just seems kind of weird to have all the air coming in being blocked by this, even though it's got its own air and all being forced out there. It's just easy to do it that way. Plus, it's a pretty wide case, so I can get all my cords in here perfectly fine, and it being vertically mounted and having the fans on the bottom, it's actually look kind of cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start by removing everything out of this, and then I'm going to place it in my other case, and or actually to show the other case as I'm doing it, and yeah, we'll go from there. But like I said, this is my first time trying to do a PC build and actually just, you know, making a video on doing it, because it is a little bit difficult because I don't have the room space for it to do that. But yep, so I'm gonna get in and I'm going to pretty much pull everything out, and then we'll just go from there. One more thing I would also like to mention is that you actually can vertically mount a GPU in the Corsair. It does give you that option if you want to do that. I don't know if you'd want to, because the vertical mounts are right here, which means your panel is right here. So in terms of airflow, probably not going to be the best in terms of that, unless you have like a smaller graphics card. But if you have something like a 5080, 4080, 4090, 7900 XT, 700 XTX, these are pretty beefy graphics cards. So I don't know if you want to vertically mount that on this, but you can if you wanted to. So that was just something else I wanted to bring up on this. So I'm going to get back into disassembling this. Now that I got my GPU out, you can get a better look at what the inside of my PC looks like. So this is the ROG Strix. This is the B650EF version. That is, again, my Be Quiet. That's the Dark Rock Pro 5 air cooler. And as I said, these are the Fantex T30s. These are all 120s. They don't make anything bigger for this particular model, but these are all going to go into the Hyte Y60. And again, like I said, I'm going to turn these from intake to exhaust, because the Hyte has fans on the bottom. So there'll be obviously there'll be intake coming from the bottom and blasting it into the graphics card as well as into the case. So it's easier for me just to have, you know, intake, and then exhaust, and then exhaust. I'm sorry, I had that messed up. Intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust. That way I have, you know, don't have everything running into the PC case and being forced out of the rear. And this is a great AIO. This is a great cooler. Never had a problem with it. I think I've had it for a couple of months, almost a year. And I had this when I had my Ryzen 7700X. Now it's being used for my 9800X 3D, and the temps are perfectly fine. These are my 3 NVM slots that I'm using. I'm actually using all 3 of these. And so, yeah, the overall case on this versus the Hyte Y60, this is obviously, it's a normal mid-size ATX. But when you look at this compared to the Hyte Y60, it's actually much bigger. And once I get this all out, I will actually show you what that looks like in terms of the internals between this versus my Y60 or my Hyte Y60. So we get into the process of starting to remove all of this and then putting this into the new case. So good thing is I don't have to worry about rebuilding everything. All I'm doing is literally just unplugging cords and then just taking it out one by one. So anyone who's ever thought about building a PC but was a little bit afraid about it, I understand your apprehension. I was really debating on whether I want to do this now or wait till I go on my vacation again back in July, but it's just much easier for me to do this now because I'm already on vacation now and I'm not going anywhere for like the next, 7 days. So yeah, so it's easy to do it now. That way I don't have to worry about it later on. And like I said before, you're not really taking pieces out here and there. All you're doing is just basically removing the entire motherboard from one thing to the next. So let's get back into this. Okay, I've pretty much gotten all the fans out. As you can see from this, there is no fans here. I pulled all of them out, including the top. I've already disconnected my GPU. All the little cords that plug into this, they have all been unplugged. So this is the result of what my case looks like now. And as you can see, as I said before, there's enough space for, a lot of fans because of this cooler and how high it sits and how it almost touches this. It's a little hard to get my hands in there to actually get into any type of basically in any fan controllers if I want to plug another fan into there. But what I love about the Fantex T30s is that I can daisy chain these. So right now, these are all being daisy chained because I'm going to be using these basically as my intake for the front of the Hyte Y60, and these are going to be my exhaust for the top. And again, they're daisy chained, which means all I need to do is basically just take one of these and basically just plug it into any header. And because of how high the Hyte Y60 is, it'll give me more than enough hand room to kind of get in and out of there to do that. So that is pretty much as far as I have gotten. All I have to do is just disconnect the power cables, basically unscrew these, and then that's it. And then I'll show you what this case looks like compared to the Hyte Y60 in terms of what they look like on the inside. And I'm actually going to be getting rid of this to somebody locally, so I don't really need two cases. I don't have spare cases, so I don't really need it. But yeah, so that is the progress that I am at so far. So I have removed everything out of the PC. Finally, it is done. So as you can see, in terms of case space, this is the 4000D from Corsair, and that is the Hyte Y60. So as you can see, although it does look like you have more space in the 4000D than you do in the Hyte, you actually have more room actually in the Hyte Y60 than you do in the 4000D in terms of its overall dimensions. If I were to sit them side by side in terms of how you could see them, this is what it looks like in a comparison between the two. So obviously the Corsair is more lean, thin, you know, just your typical case tower, whereas the Hyte Y60 is more wider than it is narrow, so it gives me a lot more room up in the top to actually put stuff in without it having to worry about it getting in the way of the air cooler for the CPU. But as you can see, I have much more ample space for fans, and like I said before, I have more than enough space right here. This is where the 3 T30s are going to go, and then my other 3 T30s are going to go, and again, those are going to be daisy chains. And as you can see, that is what the inside is. Now, it looks fairly simple. It doesn't look like I'm going to have too much problems with securing the motherboard into this. And again, I didn't know what this was initially in my last video when I did a kind of a short unboxing of it. I completely forgot that the GPU needs to be vertically mounted. So because the 7900 XT is not a really thick card, it's just your standard like normal size card, and I'll show you what I mean. So this is just, you know, it's a normal thin card. So that's sitting in here isn't really going to be that big of an issue. There'll be more than enough air cooling from the bottom fans into that. Otherwise, if I want to get more fans, I probably would, but I think the fans that are in there are more than sufficient. And like I said before, I have one exhaust, one intake. This will be an exhaust, and then that over there will be another intake. So it'll be kind of intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust. So for me, that's going to work perfectly fine for me. I know a lot of people are going to think that you need to do it a different way, but everyone's going to, when it comes to fan control in terms of how everyone does it, everyone's going to be different in how they do, especially when it comes to the case, from what I've been, at least from what I have read and how I've done my PC cases in the past. So this should be perfectly fine. But yeah, so this is the size comparison between the two. So I'm going to basically just put this aside. Now I'm going to focus on putting everything into this PC case, and then I'll show you what it looks like after I've gotten all the components in. And that's pretty much it. I won't be doing any RGB or nothing like that. I'm not really big into RGB, except for the RAM. This is going to be RGB. So yeah, so as you can see, that is the rest. So let me get back to putting this all back together, and then I'll show you the final product, the final build once I am done. And yes, it will fit on my desk. It's just a little bit wide, but I shouldn't have a problem with it. I do use AIDA64 on this to do that. Now, you may or may not know, but you can actually turn your Hyte Y60 into a Y70 by buying a touchscreen. You can buy a touchscreen for this, although it's going to cost like another $130 to do that. And then that just runs into a it plugs into, I forget how it plugs into, but it gives you, you plug it into one of the display things for your GPU, and you could do that, but I'm not going to do that because even though technically this is pretty wide in terms of where it is, I'm still going to have more than enough space on the edge to basically put this in there, so it won't be too much of an issue. So yeah, but we're going to get back into this and I will show you the final product once I am done. So I have finished majority of, I'd say probably like 50% of the way. So as you can see, I have the fans in. Unfortunately, with this case, it only does a 240 millimeter fans. So these are both 120, so I can only do 2 of these on there, which is perfectly fine because, as I said before, I have 3 up here, so that's more than enough adequate cooling. So I'll be off by about 1 fan, as I thought I was gonna be able to put 9 in here. I'm only able to put 8. So all I did is I took the last fan, that was the Hyte fan, and I replaced it with, as you can see, the Fantex one. So pretty much everything in here is running Fantex. Exhaust, intake, I'm sorry, exhaust, intake, and then intake. So yeah, it's slow going. I started this around 6:30. It's already almost 9. So power supplies in, that's what I've gotten so far. All I have to do is basically just run these cords through this and then just figure out the cable management for this. And then that's pretty much it. I do love the fact that you can reverse the power supply unit sideways, so it does allow me to actually pop a cord here and there, but technically I can just really just run this, and then this will just go into a fan header on my motherboard. Just gotta figure out which way to do it. Otherwise, other than that, yeah, I'm quarter of the way through, and like I said, I do apologize for these breaks in between videos, but this is taking me a little bit long. So this is only like my really my 3rd build, and so this is a new case, so I do love this case. So this case has given me tons of space to do pretty much everything I need. But yeah, so I got the power supply unit in, got the fans in, got the cord, just got to kind of cable manage as I'm doing along the way. Then simply just got to put in the motherboard and pop out the riser on this side, and then that's pretty much it. Don't have to load Windows or anything like that because this is not a built PC. I'm just basically, just like I said, swapping out cases. So it's just a matter of swapping everything out, putting everything back in the way it was before. But yeah, so as you can see, this is pretty much it. So like I said, I'm about 50% of the way, and yeah, so let me finish this up and then I will conclude my video. Now, as you can see, I got the motherboard in. It's a little tricky, but as you can see, I have more than enough ample hand space to get in and out if I need to use one of the fan channels for the fans. More than easy for that. Now, obviously, these are just nothing I can do about that because that's just how that's going to sit unless I just bend it like that. But most people aren't going to even notice that anyway because this is actually going to be in kind of an all black setup. So the only thing that you'll actually see that's kind of RGB will be the RAM itself. But other than that, yeah, pretty much everything else is pretty simple and gravy. All I gotta do is simply just put the rest of the cords in through here. I'll put the GPU in last because I really want to make sure I get all that in first. But putting in the riser is pretty simple. It just sits right there in the GPU slot, and then there's screws on the end of this actually. So if you think that it actually mounts to these, it actually doesn't. There are screws on the end of this that you actually screw into, and then that's pretty much it. And then yeah, all I gotta do is just run the cords through here, get everything nice and neat, and then that's pretty much it. So this isn't like, in terms of like a full build, this isn't what I would consider a full build, although my brother would disagree. All I did was I just swapped out from one case to the next, and so now I have this. So otherwise everything else is going to be staying in here. Nothing's actually changing. Other than that, yeah. So my final video, as I just said before in the last video, didn't mean to make that to be my final video, but once I got this all done and set up, yeah, then I'll finish off, and then that's pretty much it. I don't need to add Windows to this because I already have Windows. Like I said, I'm not swapping out the CPUs, otherwise I would have to install a new fresh Windows. Otherwise, it's just everything on the motherboard is where it's at. So if you're planning on doing something like this and you're swapping out cases, be careful with your motherboard, especially if you have a cooler on it, because it can be a little bit heavy. But once you put it in here, it's pretty simple. It's just trying to really line it up with the standoff screws, because you have your fan in the way. And although technically putting the fan on last, once you put this in here, is pretty simple. But I just kind of followed the instructions. I probably should just did it my own way and then put this in last, but I didn't know how much of the airflow was going to be in there. So at least I know. So I'll either have to, it'll be a little uneven because it's something I can do. The fan's just going to be where the fan is at. As you can see, it's not an even flow, but it's still perfectly fine. I'll still get as much airflow out of this as possible, as I got those two there. Then I got three exhausts there, and I got intakes there. So it should be perfectly fine. So yeah, we're just going to finish this up, and then I'll finish with my last video. So as you can see, I've got about 90% of it done. I actually had to pull out the riser to actually get the front panel as well as the HD audio connection in there. And then I'm actually using the channel fan connectors, as I usually, on my last PC, I was using the Corsair Command X Pro. So having to put these in the actual fan channels is a little bit challenging. But there was a tip here that I wanted to show really quick, and I'm going to lower my little light here really quick. This is something that I actually didn't know. This is actually something that's actually pretty cool, at least depending on it depends really on the motherboard. Whoops, the motherboard you have. So as you can see right there, I have power pins right there, and they're a little bit hard to actually get into if you have the top fan on. And what I didn't realize is you can actually take this off. If you don't have your fans plugged into your motherboard and set in your channel fans, you can literally just take this off, and you can pretty much just do all the AIO stuff, all that on there without having the need to have this on. Then you just simply just screw this back on, and then you basically just connect your cords back in. But that was I was having a trouble with, was trying to figure out how to get the power cord into that, and I couldn't because there wasn't enough space, especially with the fans right there. Then I realized that I could just simply just take those off and then just do that. And yeah, so now all I have to do is basically just, again, get my cords all set up, put the GPU in, and then I'm going to turn this on after I get everything connected and see if this, turns on. Because usually, especially if you're not building PCs all the time, you can sometimes tend to forget something. You want to make sure you don't forget anything. And since I don't really have a lot of stuff plugged into this, all I have is just a bunch of NVMs. I don't have any SATA, anything that I'm plugging into. It's just basically just the fans, the motherboard, and that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple build, but that's pretty much all that I got. As you can see, got about 90% of it done. Just got to finish the cords, and then that's pretty much all that I have. Now, as you can see, I have finally finished. All I need to do is just connect the GPU to the power and then just connect everything and turn it back on. But I did have a difficult time actually trying to put the GPU cords in the bottom as it actually shows in the kind of, if you watch the Hyte demo. Unfortunately, these cords actually will not fit in the little space down there because these are just too big. They just won't fit in that. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to do it a different way. So I'm probably just going to run it actually through the bottom one of these little grommets, so that way it can go through there. But unfortunately, it will not fit on the bottom, and it will not actually go there. I've seen people with radiators who do the same thing, but unfortunately, yeah, that won't fit in there. So that really sucks. But otherwise, I have tons of space either way to do everything. It's just figuring out the fan configuration, how I want to do it. But now that I look at it, it's actually not too bad. It's just I'm not used to seeing a vertical mounted fan. Like I said, my Corsair had the ability to do that. I just never really thought about doing it. But doing it this way is actually kind of cool. I actually had to use a Corsair Commander XL to actually connect the fans down here because I didn't have enough fan headers on here. There's only 4. And unfortunately, when I daisy chain these, daisy chain that, then that's the 4 right there. That doesn't even include the 2 down at the bottom. So I had to use the Command XL to run that, and I'll probably end up having to use the ICU software, which I'm not a big fan of that, but I've never really had issues with it too much. But yeah, so this is pretty much just done. I just had to redo the cords, and then yep, we're good. Now that I have officially finished, as I had said before, vertically mounting is pretty cool. I can see my Corsair was able to do that, but I never really thought about doing it that way. And I know the reason why now. Now I'm running EVGA power cords. Now, unfortunately for these, they don't work in terms of the vertically mounted and having the cords run up under and then plugging in. Unfortunately, that will not work because these cords are just too thick. So I'm either going to have to find some sort of thinner cables, which I'll probably buy some sort of cable extensions, or perhaps I really don't want to buy another. I really don't want to buy another power supply unit, but I really don't know what else to do. It's just going to look like this. I'm still going to get massive airflow because, again, exhaust top, intake, exhaust, intake, and then the fans on the GPU. So it should be fine for normal temps. But unfortunately, yeah, these cables are just really thick, and there really isn't any other way of doing it. I really couldn't fit them through the hole that they would, recommend, or if you've seen the video for the Hyte Y60, how you can run the cords through this and then into this. Yeah, that's not really going to work for this because it just won't work. So now all I have to do is pretty much just connect all my cords, and then yeah, we'll see if this turns on. I hope it does. Spent about 2 hours doing this, as I said before. I'm still new at PC building, so this is only my third build. And obviously, as I get better at it, then I'll get better at it. But right now, this is, what it looks like now. It's actually kind of cool. There is one issue I have with this, though, and I am going to address this with Hyte. Is this panel back here will not actually connect into, there's a little ball connector thingy that you actually just push into, and it's supposed to just simply just stay. Unfortunately, it will not. Now, I'm assuming this is just on my model. I just happened to get a version that just kind of didn't really stick together, but I can still pick it up. It's still bolted in the back, so even if I pick it up and move it, it's still perfectly fine. But yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plug this in, get everything plugged up, and then I'll finish with a final video. All right, everything is plugged in. It is the moment of truth. I'm going to turn this on, and hopefully it comes on. Hopefully, I hope. If not, well, then I guess I'll be spending another day trying to basically figure out why it's not coming on. But technically it should, because I didn't really do much of anything except basically just swap one piece, swap out the parts for another, and then just basically plug in stuff. So let's just hope that when I turn this on, you'll be able to see a little light over there. I hope. Here goes nothing. And what do you know? Everything is back on. As you can see right there, that's the light right there. I got no signal there. So we're going to actually really going to power this up really quick, and then we'll see if this comes on. I hope I have this plugged in correctly. So here goes nothing. Everything looks good so far. Hope the monitor comes on, because I probably have to turn on the monitor. Display port. It's showing that. And let's just hope that it actually loads, because I have my keyboard still connected. And God, I hope this works. It's loading. I hope nothing happens. And what do you know? Possible my keyboard could be dead. Oh, nope. Let's see. Well, let's log in really quick. And yes, everything is working, but the my GPU fans stopped working. So that is weird. I'll have to figure out why it stopped spinning. But yeah, so that's one thing. Now I'll have to figure out why there's no GPU fan going. All right, here's an update to the previous video where I couldn't figure out why my fans were not coming on. They actually do come on because when I turned on the PC and it was posting, the fans were working. They just, for some reason, they don't come on if obviously if the GPU isn't being used for anything. Even if I'm watching YouTube videos, they don't really come on. But they do work because I was playing COD last night and some World of Warships. That's when they kick on. But I probably can tune that either with the Adrenaline software, because I don't believe I can do that through the BIOS, at least for the GPU. The fans are all being controlled by Corsair Commander XL because I don't have enough fan headers on the PC to do that. There's only 4, and unfortunately I can't daisy chain a lot of these because they won't really, just not enough space for the core to let me do that. But it's actually kind of cool, and I probably will eventually try to figure out how to do it because I probably can. I just probably haven't really thought of an easy way to do it just quite yet. I do have fan extenders for the fan, so I probably can. I just probably wasn't thinking about it. But yeah. Oh, actually, no, I do have them. I'm sorry, I do have the fan extenders. I have for these, and I have them for the 3 there, and there's only 1 for that one, so I can only do daisy chain 3 at a time. So I can only do it for the 2, the 1 there. I have to use 1 separate fan header for that one, and then the 2 at the bottom. So that's really kind of all 7, 8 of them. But they're being daisy chained, I'm able to just use just all 6 as opposed to just being unable to. But my motherboard only has 4 channel header or 4 fan headers, so obviously I couldn't use it for the amount of fans that I have in there. But other than that, I'm really pleased with the build. It works perfectly fine. Now, the cooler is really right on this case. And I probably can't really express how close it is to that, but if you see where the top of the cooler is, that's like the top. If you're familiar with the Be Quiets, they have a little metal cap that actually sits on the top of that. That's literally within a couple millimeters from this glass. If this glass was to crack, you'd be able to touch the top of that cooler. So that's how close that is to that. That's how high that sits from the motherboard. But aside from that, I did have to email Hyte about a defect on my on my case. As you can see right here, that's loose. That should not be loose. That should actually be flushed with the case itself. Now, on the back panels, and pretty much on all the panels themselves, there's a little metal ball joint that's actually molded into the back panel, and there's a little hole in here that they simply just snap into, and it just stays in place. This one will not stay in place. I don't know why, but since I've only had this, well, I ordered it about a week, 2 weeks ago, and since it's having that issue, hopefully I'll be able to get a new panel, and then I'll just pop that in, and then that'll be mounted with that. Aside from that, the cord management works perfectly fine, at least from my point of view. It works great. Now, there's nothing I really can do about it. You probably won't be able to see it in the video, but there's nothing I can really do about the power sleeves or the power cords that are plugged into the graphics card. I'll probably try to find some cable sleeves. I can probably, fix that a little so they can bend a little. Otherwise, it's not really messing with the airflow of the CPU cooler. So aside from that, yeah, I figured out why the fans were not running. Like I said before, I've never really had a vertically mounted GPU. This is the first time I've done that. But aside from that, I'm very pleased with this. So again, I want to thank everybody for watching me on building this PC. And like I said, this is the first time I've ever done it on video, but I really want to thank everybody for doing that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Enjoy your week.